All right, everybody. Good afternoon. It's time. It is time. I know that we're in a little bit of a time crunch for this Seahawks game on Thursday night. I know that you guys are hungry for Seahawks content coming off the season saving win, but with the way things ended, I gotta talk about the Mariners for at least a little bit here. So we're going to take this video to digest the end of the season, and then I'm going to shelve the Mariners content for a little bit. Probably come back to it in a week or two to talk about the moves this team needs to make and the ways in which they can reasonably improve and actually finish the job next time. So, as you guys all know, the Mariners won 90 games this year, and they needed to win 92 to actually get in. 90 and 72, not quite good enough. Yesterday, we played a pretty deflating game against the Angels where they just kind of took it to us. They had a leadoff home run on Tyler Anderson and never looked back, and we didn't really put up much of a fight. There were a couple moments where we got runners in scoring position, and it looked like maybe we were going to actually make it a game, and we never really got close. And it didn't matter because the Red Sox and Yankees ended up winning. Both teams really did tease us, though. There was definitely a moment where it looked like things were falling the way the Mariners needed, and no. So even if we had won, it wouldn't have mattered. At the end of the day, we needed to sweep this series, and you dropped two games. The Friday night one was the really crushing one because you score one run in front of a packed house against a team that is not very good, against a bullpen that is not very good, with multiple opportunities to get at least a tying run home, if not winning runs as well. So it was a disappointing way to end the season, but I like to keep things in perspective and I like to keep things real around here as much as I can. And the reality is, this Mariners team overachieved like crazy in 2021. And I am disappointed they couldn't win two more games, but honestly, it's kind of amazing they didn't lose 20 more games. The run differential really speaks for itself, and if you as a team allow 50 more runs than you score, you're not supposed to win 90 games. You're not even supposed to win 80 games. Historically, teams with a negative run differential do not have winning records most of the time. And this 90 win team may be the 90 win team with the worst run differential of all time. I don't know, but they've got to be in the conversation at least because this team was very good in one run games. They were very good in low scoring games. They were very good in extra innings. And look, some of that stuff is a skill. And I got to give it up to Scott Servais, who should win Manager of the Year, I think. I would be really surprised if he didn't. Getting this group to 90 wins. Um, I got to I got to give them credit for doing it, but there's definitely some luck baked in there. And at the end of the day, this was probably a below average team that was a little bit lucky and really resilient and just really really good at stringing together successful plays when they needed it in order to win these close games. And then they would kind of revert to the mean in some of these games where they get blown out by 13 runs. So at the if you look at it from the big picture, this Mariners team went into 2021 thinking that Marco Gonzalez and Yusei Kikuchi were going to be kind of their cornerstone starters, probably. Maybe not Kikuchi, but Marco was definitely the ace. And Marco, he really struggled coming out of the gate. He got it together eventually and ended up having a pretty decent season, but he didn't have a season anywhere near as good as he did last year. And Kikuchi was so bad in the second half of the year, he got benched at the end because he just couldn't cut it. He just wasn't cutting the mustard anymore. And those were two guys you were counting on getting a lot of innings out of. So for this team to deal with those two things and still win all these games, I just have to be grateful for it. And if you think about all the things in our lineup, like let's take a look here. Okay, you had Tom Murphy. He ended up playing almost 100 games for you, batting at the Mendoza line, ops plus of 84. You had Jared Kelnick. Remember when we called him up early in the season and he was an automatic out? His ops plus at one point was like 14. Yeah, you had to support him for probably 100 at-bats of just waving at the ball and watching strike three go by. And you never really get Dylan Moore going. You've got to give significant time to guys like Jake Bowers. Don't forget Cal Riley, who never really figured out the bat this year. You're giving all these at-bats to these guys who are just black holes in your lineup, and you still find a way to 90 wins. I'm grateful for it. So, that being said, this doesn't really mean that much if we don't do something with it going forward. And this team is positioned in some ways to be able to do something good going forward. Ty France, 26 years old, had a great season, almost hit 300, was our best overall hitter this season. I have every reason to believe, going to be back for years to come. And he's going to be the motor of your offense probably for a while. Haniger, assuming he sticks around. I know he's 30. I know he's injury prone, but he had a great season. Career year, almost 40 home runs, 100 RBIs. You can win with a guy like that. So you bring those two guys back as the foundation of your offense, and you've still got Torrens, who really turned it on after starting the season out poorly and being so bad that I kind of gave up on him. Torrens is only 25. He's definitely part of the future if you want him. And it seems like you found at least a little bit of position, a position that he can play where he is in a complete net negative in first base. So on top of that, you got Fraley, and I don't know what Jake Fraley really is. He's obviously injury prone, and he's no great shakes, but he knows how to draw a walk. He knows how to work a pitch count. He had an incredibly good ops plus for a good chunk of this season, and despite playing injured in a lot of these games, probably, he did end up scraping together a really good, well, I'm not going to say really good, but effective 104 ops plus. Obviously, Kelnick played so well down the stretch for this team that you expect him to be something special. Maybe Cal Riley gets it together. You're getting Kyle Lewis back next year. Hopefully he can put it together. He was playing pretty well before he got hurt. So Crawford, his bat is good enough to justify keeping him around with his defense. He hits for a good average. He gets on base. Needs to work on stealing bases. A guy hit that fast should not be that ineffective at stealing bases. But you've got a foundation. My main concern is Toro, who cooled off to the point that his ops plus with the Mariners went down to below 100 by the end of the season, despite being up like at 150 at one point or something insane. He started out so hot and then he completely cooled off. So I'm a little concerned that the 24-year-old Toro, who looks like he's part of your future, might end up being just a slightly above replacement level player. And the Toro we got over the last month or so is the true Abraham Toro. But you've also got your minor league call-ups. You've got guys like Julio Rodriguez, who may get a shot next year. Maybe Evan White starts to figure things out and put stuff together and actually figures out how to use his bat for good rather than for, well, yeah, it's been frustrating so far. No one's denying that, but I'm not ruling out Evan White yet. And there's more reasons to be optimistic about this lineup going forward than not. I'm interested to see what happens at catcher. We have a lot riding on Cal Riley figuring this out next year and being able to at least be a 90 ops plus hitter, because Tom Murphy is a disaster at the plate and behind the plate. So Cal Riley definitely needs to be somebody who steps up big next year. If you get him, then you just need to replace Seager at third base. And I usually don't get emotional about players like this, but seeing Seager getting choked up at the end of that game today when he he didn't say it, of course. Nobody's going to say it yet, but he seemed to acknowledge the strong possibility that he will not be back as a Mariner. It really kind of hit me that I know he was no Ichiro. I know he's no Ken Griffey Jr. I know he made like what one All Star game. I know he wasn't the greatest third baseman of all time, and sometimes even in the last couple years we got mad at him because he struck out a lot. But he was a really good player, and we never even got him to the playoffs. And we were a game or two away a couple times, so that hit me. I don't think he's going to be back, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think we're going to go get somebody like a Marcus Semien, or maybe somebody I'm not even thinking about right now. But if you fill that third base hole well, you've got a lot going for you. Like I said, my main concerns about this lineup in 2022 are Toro maybe just being the guy who he was over the last month rather than the guy he was when we first got, and catcher. Excuse me, catcher. Football on the brain. You guys know that I usually talk about football on this channel, but yeah. Everything else, I like. Torrens completely turned me around on him. I'm a Torrens fan now. I think he's good. Kelnick, I absolutely believe that guy's going to be really good next year with a year of experience under his belt. He'll probably be better in the field as well. I think Crawford is solid enough, and Ty France is obviously awesome. So there's a lot I believe in this lineup for the future, and only a couple things that I'm questioning. And that's pretty much it. You've still got a couple guys in the minor leagues. Like I said, the big one is Julio, but if he gets called up, he probably won't be lighting the world on fire immediately anyway. So these are the guys you're counting on to really carry you next year. And there's more that I like than that I don't like. The wild card might be Dylan Moore. He really didn't have a good year this year, and I kept waiting for him to snap out of it, and he never really did. But if he can actually bounce back a little bit next year, that could be significant. And yeah, I'm feeling good about this lineup. Okay, so that leaves us with the pitching. Let's go down here and take a look at this. Kikuchi probably won't be back. And I know he didn't have a terrible season. I know he actually started the season pretty well, but he was so shot by the end that I would be surprised if he was back. It just seems like there's a wall preventing Kikuchi from becoming a great major league pitcher. Maybe he's like a number 5 or number 6 rotation guy based off how he played this year, but we can't sit around and wait on this forever. We're trying to actually go make the playoffs next year. A guy like Kikuchi looks like he's just going to get in the way of that right now, unfortunately. And there's enough going on with this team in terms of their potential starters that you can let a guy like Kikuchi go. Flexen, young guy, really good year, 31 starts, a lot of quality starts, 14 wins, 3.6 ERA. Flexen is definitely part of your future going forward. Marco, it took him a while to get going, but he did eventually get going, and he got his ERA south of 4. So Marco can definitely stay. I think he ended up having actually a really good end of the season. Logan Gilbert, I love the potential. I love what I saw. It wasn't always perfect, but when he was on, he's on. So you've got 3 pretty reliable guys there, and you just really need 2 more. So at that point, you can say Justin Dunn, who was pitching pretty well before he got hurt, we just bring him back and see if he can be one of the starters. Or you go with Tyler Anderson, who I understand that he messed up at the end of the season a little bit, but he was rock solid for us after the trade deadline. He was a great inning sponge. He gave us a lot of quality outings. It kills me that he sucked so bad in his 2 of his last 3 starts, but he's good. And if you want to bring him back at age 32, that's not unreasonable. But if you really want to try to go over the top here, there are guys you can go get, like Max Scherzer. Some people are building some buzz about Max Scherzer to the Mariners. And I think that this team owes the fan base and owes their young core some kind of splash. And it could be Marcus Semien, but it could also be a guy like Max Scherzer. So if you add Scherzer to the rotation, you could go 6 deep. You could have a 6-man rotation. or you could get rid of a guy like a Tyler Anderson and say, he was all right, but we don't want to lean on him again, and we want to go to war with five guys that we really, really like. So there's a lot of possibility there, and I'm optimistic about where it can go. Now, the bullpen is going to be difficult to deal with, I think, because we had a lot of guys this year who pitched probably above their head. Steckenrider ended up with an ERA of 2 flat in 67 innings. That's probably not sustainable. Paul Sewald had an ERA of about 3 with 64 innings under his belt. I doubt it's sustainable. So next year, and by the way, Casey Sadler, I mean, I guess he's really the king, right? 0.67 ERA with 40 innings. You're not going to do that again unless he's actually a Hall of Famer and we just didn't realize it. But these guys are probably going to regress. Those 3 guys I just mentioned, they may be good, but they're all on the wrong side of 30. They're all not as good as they played last year, if we're being straight honest. We got some really, really high quality years out of those 3 guys, and thanks to them for it, but we can't count on them to do it again, even if they do come back. So maybe you go get Kendall Graveman because his contract with the Astros is expiring. Maybe you go bring him back in because he was really good for you at the start of the season. And at that point, you still need a couple more guys. I don't know how much you like your young guys. I don't know if you think Anthony Sandwich has a real future in Major League Baseball, but he was like a roller coaster this year. There were times where I was like, wow, I really like what this guy's doing, but I don't know if he's part of your future plans. Diego Castillo, his numbers are not bad, but I didn't feel comfortable every time he went out there, and I don't know if he's part of your future either. If you do decide to bring him back, it's obviously not a terrible idea. He's not awful. Even when he was getting on my nerves, he wasn't terrible, but is that somebody you can count on to not give away games next year? I'm not going to trust it anytime he comes out there. One guy who got a little bit of burn in the final game of the year, Andres Munoz, was actually hitting 100 on the gun, and he's only 22. So definitely keep that name in mind going forward for this bullpen. He's a guy who might really be part of things next year. So there's a lot to like. The main concern I have is building a good bullpen for next year. We're going to need to bring in some people, and we're going to need to pick the right guys to keep, because some of these guys are not very good, and some of the guys who were really good this year are not going to be nearly as good next year. We got to make the right decisions here. Other than that, though, I like where this team is headed. I have a couple of concern areas, but I'm happy with the way they played this year. It sucks to not make the playoffs. It sucks to come 2 games short, but don't get down, Mariners fans. It was a great year. We achieved a lot. I'm way more proud of them than I am upset with them. So more Mariners stuff coming eventually, but for now I got to take a break from it. Let me know what you guys think about this season and where this team is headed, but I'm optimistic about the state of this team, and I think all you guys should be as well for now. All right. Peace. Go Mariners.